after attending a ladies' open tournament at the ripe old age of 5 years old, she knew being a professional golfer was her calling. She is considered one of the best women golfers in the world. Her credits? 8-time LPGA champion, which includes her first win as one of the youngest golfers to finish first in the tournament. And she is a 3-time Canadian and Ontario Junior Girls champion. She has been honored with many awards, including Athlete of the Year, a member of the Canada Sports Hall of Fame, and she is an Order of Canada recipient. Her name is Sandra Post. She had a successful 16-year career in golf, but retirement did not keep Sandra from her passion. Her career as a golf instructor came shortly after she founded the Sandra Post School of Golf in Caledon, Ontario. She is a true role model for women in sports. Join me, Melissa Morris, as I talk one-on-one with Sandra Post right after this break. Welcome to this edition of One-on-One. I'm your host, Melissa Morris, and today we are joined by professional golfer Sandra Post. Sandra, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
We're going to start right from the beginning about you growing up. You grew up in Oakville, which is, I guess, sort of the center of golf in Ontario. Really, there's so many prestigious golf courses like Glen Abbey. Would you say that growing up there sort of played a part in why you love golf?
Well, not really. See, I grew up there 53 years ago, before even Glen Abbey was even thought of. And it was my dad, who was a member of the Oakville Golf Club. He was a good player himself, a club champion. And he had 2 girls. My sister's 5 years older than I am. And he was a sporty person, and is still a sporty person. And he just wanted his daughters to be in sport. And so it was golf. And I'm grateful for that. They used to travel to Florida in the winter, and so he would take us with them. And that's when he introduced me to the LPGA. And I was 5 years old, and it was born. I mean, I just wanted to be a professional golfer.
And you were 5 years old? You knew at that point.
Well, you know, a lot of young people are affected that way. You know, for instance, that they have to go to, into the hospital, and a little child, meets a doctor that they fall in love with, or a nurse they fall in love with. That's what they want to be when they grow up. Now, sometimes, they sort of change career paths along the way and their thoughts about it, but no, that I just knew my destiny was to be a professional golfer.
Well, tell us a little bit about your father and a little bit about some of the training that you had very young growing up, and the techniques and things that you learned from them.
Well, professional sport certainly has changed. It's become very sophisticated today. But when I was growing up, first of all, we didn't even have any professional women athletes in this country. So, I was sort of setting a pace here, which I really didn't have anybody to follow. But what I kept looking for were at the LPGA tour, and that's what was my focus. And so we would play in as many tournaments that would let me in. Even I was very young when I started playing in golf tournaments, like 9 years old. And that was a novelty in the Toronto area. And then, of course, I won the Canadian Junior and tournaments like that. And at 19 years old, there weren't scholarships. In 18, 19 years old, I sort of graduated from Oakville Trafalgar High School. And at that point, it was just a matter of you joined the tour. I didn't go to university. The scholarships weren't there. Title IX wasn't in place. Title IX is equal scholarships for men and women in the United States. So there weren't any scholarships, so away I went.
Well, you won, as you just mentioned, 3 straight Ontario Junior Championships and 3 consecutive Canada Junior Championships. So how did you transition from that over to professional golf?
Boy, you're so right. What a transition. Yeah. It was like 1 minute I was the junior champion of Canada, and the next minute I was teeing it up on the LPGA Tour. And as the first Canadian woman to join the LPGA Tour, a big leap, a big leap. And you just, kind of a scary time. And I often say, one moment I was a Canadian junior champion, and that 6 months later I was the LPGA champion, which, and at that point when I won the LPGA championship, I had just been on tour for 6 months. And at that point I was the youngest, male or female to win a major championship. So it was a big 6 months of my life.
And in those 6 months, you were named Rookie of the Year. All kinds of huge accolades. Mm-hmm. You were 19 years old.
Yeah, I turned 20 in June, and I didn't realize at that age that it was going to shape my life forever. Winning that tournament, I had no idea the impact it would have in sort of defining who I would end up being and what I would accomplish.
Well, we're going to find out lots more about what you've accomplished and what you continue to accomplish when we come back. We're here with Sandra Post on One on One. Welcome back to One on One, where today we are joined by our guest, Sandra Post, professional golfer. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
We were talking a little bit about being 19 years old, so young, LPGA champion. Take us to 10 years later, 1978, when you had another 2 big wins.
Okay. Well, 10 years, you're right. It was they were pretty lean years, and I won very quickly. I was married very young at 21 years old. My husband was in Vietnam, and he had been drafted and had to serve in the Army for a year. And when he returned, we just sort of agreed to disagree. I had to get on with my career, and I wasn't doing very well balancing being a professional athlete and trying to be a wife. I was just too young. And so we actually divorced, and I had to sort of climb back up that ladder again. And it was 10 years before I won in the United States. But actually, I won in 1976 in Japan, and I also won in Australia. And they were called unofficial events. But I at least, I had won. And I had been in the top 10 money winners for most of those years. I just was having a hard time getting back on that pedestal. But boy, when I did climb back on, they were big ones. And in 1978, it was a back-to-back win. 1979. Today, it's known as the Kraft Nabisco. It's also a major championship on our tour. But when I won it, it was known as the Dinah Shore. And for a lot of your viewers who are old enough, they will recognize the name Dinah Shore. And she brought a lot of glamour to our tour. It was an amazing event. She brought all her movie star friends, of course, like Frank Sinatra, and it's just everybody came and played. It was just wonderful, and the presidents like President Ford played, and it was a great time for the LPGA, and on the television and everything. And I actually was fortunate to win that tournament back to back in 78, 79. A very tough thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, and those 10 years, obviously a lot happened in those 10 years. Not only obviously shaped you as the person that you became, but do you think going through that shaped you as a golfer as well, sort of having to overcome things in your life?
Absolutely. We often say, especially in, athletes and professional athletes, you go up the ladder and then you come down the ladder. Well, I actually got to go up the ladder again. And so I got to climb it a few times in life, and I think you appreciate it more the second time. And I think that's one of the great things about golf. It has longevity. A lot of sports, I would have been done because of my age. But in golf you get second and third chances because of the nature of the sport. So I think I was much more appreciative later on in my life when awards came along and victories came along. I was really a lot better able to obviously just absolutely live with it all, and I was really much more happier who I was too.
Yeah, and you mentioned awards. There are a lot of awards. Can you even give us a sample of some of the awards that you've won?
Well, I'm in 5 Halls of Fame. And, of course, the big ones are your Canadian Sports Hall of Fame and the Canadian Golf Hall of Fame. And then there's the Ontario Golf Hall of Fame and the Ontario Legends Hall of Fame. But I'm just as proud of the Oakville Hall of Fame, which is a wonderful Hall of Fame in Oakville, because a lot of these towns have a hard time keeping their Halls of Fames going today. And the Oakville Hall of Fame, they've done a wonderful job in doing that. So I'm really proud of that. Other awards that came along, when I became Canadian Athlete of the Year, I did not beat a hockey player that year. It was Gilles Villeneuve who I beat for that honor. I mean, I was thrilled when they called me and told me I was going to win the Bobby Rosenfeld Award. That's for Female Athlete of the Year. And I was thrilled with that one. But when then they called me a couple of weeks later and I had the Canadian Athlete of the Year, I was really happy. And not for myself, and not even for my family. I was happy for women professional sports in this country, because we had come from in 1968 to not having any to us recognizing women's professional golf. I often kid with my friend Nancy Green. Nancy, she always won Female Athlete of the Year, and especially on Olympic years, you couldn't beat her. You can't beat an Olympian on Olympian year. But 1968, she was really the queen of sports in this country. And professional, I remember I won the LPGA championship, and I was ranked 5th when it came to Female Athlete of the Year. And I'm thinking they're never going to recognize, professional women's sports. And so that's why I had to keep hammering away for all those years. But, besides those awards, things just kind of, came my way. But, I think when I received the Order of Canada, a few years ago, that was sort of the final thing that I just love the most, and from the Governor General, and with my husband there, and it was just, this is it right here. If you ever see this little snowflake that people wear on their lapels, that's what that symbolizes. That's the Order of Canada, and it sort of is really special.
Well, we're going to find out lots more about your achievements and your career when we come back with Sandra Post on One on One. Welcome back to One on One, where today we are joined by professional golfer Sandra Post. Sandra, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We've talked about your amazing career, and in 1984 you decided to retire. What made you decide that?
Well, I was very young, and I'd been on tour as a teenager, and as a pioneer, obviously, for Canadian women's golf, professional golf, and it had been a great life. And I had won 8 times, couple unofficial, a major championship. I had really sort of done what I set out to do. And I was about 36 years old at the time. And I really thought, I had been living in Florida for 25 years, and I always wanted to come home. There was never in my mind doubt that's where I wanted to come back to. I played golf with President Ford, played with him numerous times. Just a wonderful man. And even he, suggested if I would ever like to become an American citizen, he would help me in any way possible. And I always said I was never going to give up my Canadian citizenship, and I was someday going to go home because I had things to do there. And so I came home, and I was 36 years old, and I didn't have a job or anything, but I knew I wanted to come home. And when I sort of end something, I sort of just walk away. I just cut it and go. And I returned home and actually got into teaching pretty quickly. And actually, dear Johnny Esau from CTV offered me an announcing job to do the few, of course, golf events that they carried, and so that kept me in it, and just being, I think being born in the Toronto area was really advantageous because I stayed in the loop, so to speak, with charity golf tournaments, being visible, and people giving me opportunity to do things. So, besides starting my school, and I did a lot of corporate events, and things sort of evolved, and today, I don't know how many years later, what is it, 20-some-odd years later, I'm still around and doing all of that, and I have my golf club line, and which is a Canadian company out of Winnipeg, Jazz Golf, my signature line. So I'm very, very busy. I love what I do, a great passion for what I do, and I've been fortunate.
Tell us a little bit about your golf school and some of your strategies with new golfers and people who've been golfing a long time. I mean, you must really have to bring people along. So tell us a little bit about your strategies.
Well, first of all, my golf school is located at Glen Eagle Golf Club, which is just north of Bolton. And I just moved there in the spring, in April of '07. So, and my sister, actually, she's also an accredited teacher, and she works for me. So with the two of us, we have a large following, and mostly women, and mostly women that really want to play. And we never have people that call us and saying, well, I don't know if I really want to do this. No, they know. So I always attract all the type A's, and away they come. And I love teaching new golfers, because I feel that, first of all, the only ingredient you need to play golf is you want to play. And once you say, okay, I want to play, you're going to make it. But, women need certain things that men don't when it comes to, starting this game. And they need good basics. They need a good grip, stance, posture, alignment. They need those things. Men can be a little more careless with that and still get away with at least hitting the shot because they're strong. Women cannot. So we have the level ones, which are the new golfers, and I really like them because they don't have any bad habits. They're actually sometimes easier to teach than the better players that have ingrained bad habits. And I love it when they're successful, they get the ball in the air, and I know that I've affected their lives for the rest of their lives. This is a lifestyle choice that I've introduced them to. And I think it's kind of exciting.
And how much of the game that you're teaching them is mental? I mean, that's still the physical side, but
it's all mental. No, it drives you mental. No, it doesn't. The level ones, we just get them, with the good basics, hitting the ball. We get them out in the course to teach them some etiquette and rules, and away they go. And level twos are a little bit more sophisticated. And when we get into the mental aspect or certain parts of the game, that becomes more private and semi-private lessons. Okay, so there are different types of lessons that you take.
We are going to talk more about the school and more about you when we come back right here on One on One. Welcome back to One on One, where today we're joined by professional golfer Sandra Post. Sandra, something that you're involved in that's very important to you is called Making the Connection. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, Making the Connection started about 4 years ago, and it's about awareness of cholesterol. I'm on a great team. I'm on a team with Pat Quinn and Rod Black, Gaetan Boucher, and Stephen Ames. And what we all have in common is that there's someone in our family or someone very close and dear to us that has high cholesterol. So in this country, of course, when you go out to speak about things like this, it's all about awareness. And that's all basically is our message, is make sure you talk with your physician, get your cholesterol tested. Because, well, first of all, heart disease is the #1 killer for women in this country. And it's just about you and your physician and getting tested for cholesterol. You can look at somebody, and somebody can be nice and tall and lean, like my husband, 6'1", nice and lean. Then you look at me, shorter, a little bit curvier, obviously. And between the two of us, you'd think I would be the one. No, he's the one with the high cholesterol. So you can't see it. You cannot see high cholesterol, or bad cholesterol until you, unfortunately, you hit the ground, with a heart attack or a stroke. So it's about awareness. So it's been fun. It's been really fun to be a part of that team.
Another thing that's been fun has been your association with Jazz.
Yeah, Jazz Golf out of Winnipeg. There's only a couple of women in this whole world that have their name on a golf club. And I'm the only one. We all were on tour, but I'm the only one that's actually a teacher today. And so I've taken that, that knowledge, and they really do allow me to put it into golf clubs, to design golf clubs that, are easy for women to hit because they're flexible, the shaft is flexible, they're light, they have lots of loft, and they're affordable. And you put that all together, and you've got a wonderful set of golf clubs that I just really, really enjoy. And it really makes a difference for women to have equipment that is really light, flexible, and lofty. And then they'll be successful, and they'll want to play the game.
Yeah. We were talking about living in this area. We were talking a little bit earlier about how you wanted to come home. Yeah. What do you love about living in this area? I mean, I know you're an avid traveler and an avid gardener. Are these all things that you can enjoy living here?
Well, my husband, I've only been married about 15 years, and when we got married, he had a small little cottage cabin on the river, at the Forks of the Credit, and he asked me. I was still living in Oakville at the time, and he was in Brampton. He was coming out of politics, and he asked me, where do you want to live? And so we couldn't live in the cabin because it wasn't even heated properly for the winter. It was a cabin. So anyway, we actually pushed it over, and we built a nice sort of country home there. We have since moved, but we're right around the Forks of the Credit. We just love it. I love it because there's space. I love the people. I love the mentality of Caledon. I love this. I mean, I was born on a farm, so I love gardening. Yes, it's just the best place. It's close to the airport, but far enough away so you can get to the city. So it's anything you want it to be. But I think more than anything, it's the people and it's the space.
And you're so busy with people and space and your school and everything else. What's next for you?
Well, the summer, we're going to finish off the summer. I'm going to keep, of course, doing the broadcasts that I enjoy doing, the LPGA event. I do the skins game. I really keep my thumb still, with the LPGA, but just trying to stay healthy and enjoying life.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, and thank you very much for joining us. Join us next time on One-on-One.
One-on-One was taped on location at the Millcroft Inn and Spa, which features award-winning dining and accommodations and state-of-the-art European-style spa.